I guess it might be a little bit confusing because whenever we're describing a physical reality with words, it's always challenging. But it's not really such a hard Gemara. Good morning. We're learning as discussed for Shleima Filan Chaya Basarach and for Meir Ben Cyril Peril. We're on Daf Yud Ches Amid Beis. We had so again, we're going to remind ourselves. In the Mishnah, we had brought two shitas. Rabbanan Rabbi Yossi by Yehuda, where the Rabbanan had said, when you cut through the Tabas Hagadayla, you have to cut through the entire thing within the area that you're allowed to shech. You can't go past the Tabas Hagadayla. That's the furthest up on the animal you're allowed to shech the animal. So if you magram, if you go at any point past the Tabas Hagadayla, you go to the upper part of into the animal's mouth, that'll be possible. So that's the Rabbanan. And then we had Rabbi Yossi Yehuda, who said no. Rubai Kakulai, once you went through Roiv of the Kana, Roiv of the trachea, Roiv of the width of the circumference of the trachea, if you then veered off and went up into the larynx, like into the mouth of the animal, that's okay because you already got Roiv of the Kana done, so it's a kosher shchita. The Rabbanan say no, you have to do the whole thing within the boundaries, right? If this is the animal's neck, this is the animal's head, right? And this is where the Kana Gedol is. So according to the Rabbanan, you have to cut straight through the whole thing. You can't go up any part of that cut and go here because that's outside of the bounds. According to the Rebbe Yehuda, no, you got through Roiv of it. You need Rubai Kakulai. And then we said a third shita who disagrees altogether with the fact that this tabas hagadayla is the outer limit going toward the head of the animal. You could even go past there into the kayf, into what's called the helmet or the hat, which is a way of describing the piece of bone that's the next thing after the tabas hagadayla. That's what we're up to. Rav Shimon ben Lakish Amma. So this is about 11, 12 lines in the back. Rav Shimon ben Lakish Achsher b'chuda de kaiva. Rav Shimon ben Lakish said it's kosher not just the kaiva, not just that bone that's further up toward the mouth of the animal, toward the head of the animal. Not just the kaiva, but even the chuda de kaiva, all the way to the top tip, the front tip of the kaiva. If he does the shechita there, it's kosher. Karla Rabbi Yochanan Gisa Gisa. Yochanan says, "You went too far. You went too far. You've gone. You've been too broad. You're too much of a makel." Amar Pape Mishmei Rava. Paga b'chiti treifa. He says, if you go into the chiti are small pieces of cartilage. Right, so we're talking about that, this is the kana, so the top is the kaiva. This is like a helmet or a hat-shaped piece of bone. On the bottom, there are pieces of bone that are like what do you call it? Like grains of wheat. They're shaped like little kernels. That's what they look like. I guess they're a bunch of different pieces. So they call them chiti. So it's really the same thing as the kaiva, as the Gemara is going to say later on. Different part of the kaiva. So he says this is all obviously going like, not like the Rabbanan and like Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah, but like Rav Chanina ben Antignas. Iboilu. Paga v'naga behen, it says paga b'chiti treifa. If it touches the chiti, it's treifa. So what does that mean? Does it mean that if he touches the chiti, that means he goes past the tabas and he's into the chiti, then it's treif. Like the pasuk uses he reached him. That means he actually got there. Maybe paga means even if he doesn't touch, because that it says by Yaakov, and that it says the malachim who paga him. That means they met him, but they didn't go all the way up to him. Didn't touch him. So tomorrow, Itmar, Papa Mishmei, the Rav Shai Bechiti Kshera. He said if you leave over any chiti, it's kshera. So that means he's saying not like the two mandam in the Mishnah. Somewhere chiti, if you left over any chiti, it's kosher. That means not like the chuda of the kaiva, but the kaiva. Amarav Ameimar Bar Mar Yenuka have a kamina kameder of chia breder of Avi of Amalai Shar Bechiti Kshera. He says the same thing. Amalei Ravina Ravashi, Amalei Rav Shaman Misura. Hiklam azuter al-asin v'dorish shar b'chiti kshera. Mar baravashi amar paga b'chiti kshera shar b'chiti treif. Mar baravashi said, no, it's not shar b'chiti, which means that you left over any chiti that it's kosher. You have to be paga b'chiti is kosher shar b'chiti kshera. It's only could be up to the chiti, but if you cut into the chiti, it doesn't make a difference if you left over some of the chiti. It's still going to be treif. You have to leave over the entire chiti.
These people, they were around the circumference of the pipe?
They weren't fully around the circumference. Like the pipe was, the top half was what we call the kaiva. We have the shibuya kaiva, the slant of the kaiva, and then you have the chudashal kaiva, which is the tip. And on the bottom of it, the bottom part of that was these chiti. So there's just different ways of measuring the same thing.
So what do you mean, sharp? The heating were left untouched?
No, we're talking about where a person cut all the way through. We're not talking about the depth of the cut. We're talking about up to where can you cut. We're purely talking about that question right now. Where is the outer limit? Which is, like in the Mishnah, we were arguing about where you magrim, where you veered off. But Rav Chanina ben Okinos, whatever his name is, I don't remember it. He says that Hananya ben Ukinas, he says that you can go even past the Tabas G'dayla. You can even cut further than that.
So these heating, they weren't along the entire pipe. They were just like on the top.
Just past the Tabas G'dayla, like underneath where this kaiva was the chiti. That's the way I understand it. And this Gemara on Amud Aleph says, "V'hilcha mishipi kaiva lamata kshera." Behind the shire bechiti. If you left over from the slant of the hat, right? We said the hat was the upper part of that pipe. That if you left over from there, meaning closer toward the tabas agdayla, it's kosher. But you can't go all the way to the chuda. You can't go to the end of the hat. Behind the shire bechiti, the chiti ends before you get to the chuda of kaiva. So essentially, the chiti is the same as the kaiva, other than the chuda shel kaiva, other than the tip of the kaiva. Rav Nachman achsher mishipi kaiva lamata. Rav Nachman kashered from the slant of the kaiva and underneath that, meaning toward the body of the animal, which is the part that you're really supposed to cut it. But Amalei Rav Chanan barav Katina Rav Nachman. Command, like Rabbanan, like Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Nachman, who's saying you could do in the kaiva, he's not saying like either of the mandam of our Mishnah. They were hassling us about the tabas gedayla, which is more toward the center part of the animal, away from the animal's head, and that was their outer limit. So it's not like either of the tanoim of our Mishnah. Amalei, I don't know from chilik, I don't know from bilik. It's a way of dismissing him. He's saying, you're saying I'm not like this Tana, I'm not like that Tana. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know from Joe, I don't know from Shmo. It's all not, doesn't make a difference. I know what the halacha I was given is, which is like Rav Chanina ben Akinas. Dam Rav Chia bar Abba, Rav Yechon, Rav Amil, Rav Abba bar Yazav, Dam Rav Chanina, Rav Amil, Rav Yaakov bar Idi, Rav Yeshua ben Levi, Mishipu Kaiv Lamata Kshera. He has this memra, which was said over from his Rebbeim, that it's kosher. Amr Yeshua ben Levi, Mugremes Yeshua, Mugremes Rish Lakish Yeshua ben Levi, Mugremes the Rabbanan Kshera the Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda. What the Rabbanan in the Mishnah said is going to be puzzle. It's kosher according to Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda. right? In the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda was more makel. The Rabbanan said if he went out of the tabas gedola, that's going to be possible. And Rabbi Yehuda said it's kosher. Rabbi Yehuda ksher Reb Chanina ben Antignas. And Reb Chanina ben Antignas would say that even what Rabbi Yehuda said is possible. That he said if you do the whole thing outside of tabas gedola, Rabbi Yehuda would say it's possible. Rabbi Chanina ben Antignas says it's possible. Zaktamar Pshita. What do I have to tell this for? I might have said Rabbi Chanina ben Antignas was never disagreeing with. He says if you're magram, it's kosher. I might have said he's just arguing on that which the Rabbanan said, the original Rabbanan in the Mishnah, that they had said if you're magram from the tabas gedola, that they said it's possible, and he's saying no, it's kosher even with hagrama. It could have been like the Rabbi Yehuda. The actual words of Rav Chanina ben Antignas was Hayed Rav Chanina ben Antignas. But he said Hayed. He should have said just Hayed Aleha, Hayed on the Rabban Rabbi Yehuda if he was directly addressing them. But since he was talking about a whole different day, and he was saying that you can go even past the tabas gedola, he didn't say it that way. In the end, the halacha is taka like Rav Chanina ben Antignas because Rav Nachman holds like it. So now, strangely enough, right after we say the halacha is like Rav Chanina ben Antignas, the Gemara goes right back to analyzing the Rabbanan's shita that said that you have to do entirely in the tabas hagdaila. The way he understands the machlokes in the Mishnah is a shachat shnei shlish behigrim shlish. The way we had described it when we learned the Mishnah, it's talking about according to where he went 2/3 of the way through the kana, and then he went past the tabas gedola toward the throat. The Rabbanan savi kula shchita b'inan tabas gedola. The Rabbanan hold you have to do it entirely in the tabas gedola, and therefore it's going to be possible. Rabbi Yehuda savar rubai kekula. Rabbi Yehuda, like we've said, holds rubai kekula. Aval hegrim shlish b'shachat shnei shlish. If he went out already in the first third before he got halfway through the animal, and then he shechted, he did the shchita. I'm sorry, not the other way around. He started above the kana, above the tabas gedola, outside of the tabas gedola, in a place that you're not allowed to shech. And then he veered back after the first third, and then he shechted the second 2/3 in the proper place. Everyone will agree that it's possible. Because at the time that he went through the halfway point, which is at the point where the animal is not able to survive, which is not precisely true, because even if you had done the other siman first, that would have already made the animal unable to live, but you still need to do the other siman. But it means if within this siman, when you get through roiv, that's the conclusion of the shechita of this siman. So at the time that you had gone halfway through the siman, you had done the first third of the shechita was outside of the proper bounds, and then the next 1/6, meaning until you got to the halfway point, was done properly. So roiv of the cut before the animal was killed, before you got to the halfway point, roiv of that part was done improperly. And therefore, everyone will agree in that case that it's no good. You got it? That's the svara. So it'll basically be, if you divide up the whole cutting of the animal into 6, right? So you did the first 2/6 outside, then you did the next 1/6 inside. You do the last 3/6 also inside, but it's too late because once you got to that halfway point, once you got to 3/6, that's where the animal can't survive anymore when you cut through half of the kana. So therefore, it's too late to fix what you did wrong. That's the first sheet. Why do we have to describe the machlokes in the Mishnah like that? The machlokes is different. The opposite way. Machlokes b'shehigrim shlish b'shachat shnei shlishi. like we said, where he went outside, he cut at first outside a third, and then he shechted the other two. This is similar to a chatzi kana pogum, which is going to say it in about a week or a week and a half. Let's see the Rashi, the 3 lines down, 3 lines up in the narrow lines. If the animal had exactly half, it wasn't over half, it was right. For our person, it could even be a little less than half. It was pogum, there was a wound in the kana. It was open. But it could still live with that. If the person goes and finishes that cut to pass the roiv point, then it's going to be a kosher shchita. So he's saying this should be the same thing. What do I care that most of the traveling up to that point was done outside of the bounds? But since you're the one who did the actual deed of taking it past the halfway point, once the halfway point was done, bekashrus, that's a good shchita. What difference does it make if it was happened on its own, that the kana, let's say, got torn by an animal, tore it, and then you finished it off, or if it was done outside of the proper area? But the main thing is that you did at the halfway point, which is taking away the life of the animal. That was done by the sheikhet. Rabbanan would say, they would disagree. Say, where the case where the animal tore open a different animal, let's say, it got a cut somehow, that it was, the kana was already open less than half, but that's in the proper hakum shchita. So when you finish the last bit, you're completing a proper shchita. But when it was cut outside of the tabas hagdela, above the tabas hagdela, that's not even when you can't be mitzvah of that to the cutting of the halfway point, because that's outside the bounds, and that's a pasula shchita. Aval shachat, so that would be the kasha. Aval shachat shnei shlish v'higrim shlish. We shachat through 2/3, and then he veered off at the end. That everyone would agree it would be kasha. The tanan ruba shalachad kamayu. Ruba yuskakule, the way we normally say it. Right? Once you get past the roiv, everyone, even the Rabbanan, would agree that it's going to be kosher. Right? So this is the suggestion. We're changing what the terms of the Mishnah were. Not like we had described it, that the machlekes is where you went through 2/3 and the last third went off, but rather you went off on the first third and you then did the last 2/3 properly. But everyone would agree in the way we had originally described the Mishnah, that would be kosher. You're saying, you bring a raya, everyone would agree in the case, the way we had originally described the Mishnah, if you got to the roiv, that would be kosher, because say rubai kukulai. It says, that what you're saying, that rubai shel echad kamayu, that when the roiv of something is like the whole thing. Maybe that's only according to Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe the Rabbanan don't agree to that. Maybe that rule is only according to Rabbi Yehuda. That doesn't make any sense. We're saying Rubai Kekula, it's only according to Rabbi Yehuda, and the Rabbanan is a Yachid, and the Rabbanan don't agree with the rule of Rubai Kekula. That makes no sense. It's all over Shas. We have all the time Rubai Kekula. Don't tell me that the rule of Rubai Kekula is only Rabbi Yehuda. Said, no, all I meant to say is maybe in Shchita, Rabbi Yehuda is the Mandama who says Rubai Kekulai, not generally. So that was all I was suggesting. Lishna Achrina, and this is a little bit of a gimme. This is a repetition of the last suggestion that we just made, just with different Manda Amrim, different Amoraim saying the Shitas. Amar Avhuna Amar Avasi, Machlaikas Shehigim Shlish V'Shachat Shnei Shlish. The Rabbi Yosef Yehuda Sava Midi Dahava Chatzi Kana Pagam Rabbanan Hasam Makam Shchita Hacham Lav Makam Shchita. So again, we're talking about the question where he went out in the first third and then he went back on the second 2/3. And the question is, do you go Basa, since Rabbi Yosef Yehuda would say it's kosher because it's like Chatzi Kana Pagam, where it was already pre-cut. The Rans say over there that was in the Makom Shchita. But in the case of the way we had originally described it, now everyone would agree it's kosher. Maybe that's Rabbi Yehuda. Ketanila, he's the one who said it. Dilma Rabbi Yehuda Ketanila. So then he said, maybe Rabbi Yehuda Tak is the one who said, Rabbi Yehuda, to call Rabbi Yehuda Ketanila. Amalei, Ana Rabbi Shchita Kamina Shamana Lu de Pligi. Again, the same text. Another suggestion, another possibility. Higrum shlish, b'shachat shlish, b'higrum shlish. I guess if you've been learning through Shas long enough, you knew this was coming, right? We said, what happened if he was mahigrim? Higrum means that he veered off in the last third. Then we asked, what happens if he was veered off in the first third? So obviously we're going to have to ask the next question, where he was higrim in the first third, then he shechted in the middle properly, and then he was higrim again in the last third. Now, Rav Huna Amarav Kshera. This is the chayra only in the Rabbanon, not in Rabbi Yehuda. According to any sheet that we send Rabbi Yehuda, this is not going to be good. Rav Huna Amarav says Kshera. Yehuda Amarav Treif. Rav Huna Amarav Kshera Kinafka Chiyusa B'Shchita Kanafka. Since the middle third was with Shchita, it doesn't make a difference that you started off with Hagrama. When the life went away, it was a good Shchita. Rabbi Yehuda Amarav Treifa B'Inen Ruba B'Shchita V'Leka. Since roiv of it was done incorrectly, it's not going to be good. It means this is even according to Rabbi Yehuda, who said it was good if you did the second 2/3 b'shchita, but this over here you don't even have half of it done properly. Shachat shlish v'higrim shlish v'shachat shlish. This is the last possibility. He shechted a third properly, then he did hagrama in the middle when the animal died. When the kana was fully cut, was made it that it can no longer live. B'shachat shlosh, then he shechted the last third. Yehuda Amarav says kshera. And this, so Yehuda Amarav is flipping. He was the one who said before it's treifa, because he said you need ruba b'shchita, and this does have ruba b'shchita, so therefore he says it's kosher. Also shalula Rav Huna amalahu treifa. He said it's treifa. Now again, Rav Huna also flipped. Rav Huna had said b'shem Rav that where just the middle part was good, it was kosher. Now he's saying it's treifa because it seems to follow logically. He holds it depends on when's nafka chiyusa, when the animal dies. Sham Rabbi Yehuda itbit. Rabbi Yehuda heard that Rav Huna said that it's treifa, and he got mad. Amar tarifnu machasha machshana v'tara. Said, whatever I say is kosher, you say is treifa. Whatever I say is treifa is kosher. You're being very contrary. Amar Rav Huna shaber kamikvit. Rav Huna said, now that I think about it, he's takarai. Chada diyu shamei leminei de Rav hanala shamieli. Rav Huna had said b'shem Rav on the second din, but Rav Huna had just said his own svara. I didn't hear. He said, Rav Huna said, ultimately, I don't think that the only thing that's, I think you could be yait l'chayr, you could be yait said either way. Either that you nafek chiyusa or you do rive shchita. So I would agree with Rav Huna, what he said b'shem Rav, that if you have roiv of the, it's not just where you have nafek chiyusa, like I said in the first case. It's also you have roiv of the shchita. Rav Chizda said, not so fast. You don't have to. Don't give up so quickly. You really have a good argument to Rav Yehuda. If you're going to agree to Rav Huna that over here it's going to be kosher, then in the first case that you said is kosher, you're going to have to switch your shita. You had said originally that it's tali in hagrama in the when the time of nafek chiyusa. So if it's tali in that over here, the middle third was b'hagrama, so it should be possible. He said, don't try to switch. It's not correct to say that you have two options. It could either be ruba b'shchita or b'hagrama. You have to pick one. And if you're going to be agreeing with Rabbi Yehuda, then you're saying that because of nafka chiyusa. So you can't switch now and say that it's going to depend on ruba b'shchit. Ikler of Nachem l'sura. Nachem came to Surah in Bavel, Bo Mine. Shachat shlish, v'higrim shlish, v'shachat shlish. Question that we had just discussed. He was magram, he did the first third and the last third properly, the middle third, he went outside of the bounds. Mao. Amalu lav hainu dam rabbalasa bam yami dam rabbalasa ben yumi. Shchita asuya kamasr kshera. A shchita that's done like a comb, which is going in and going out, meaning that he was in by the beginning, then he went out for the middle, and then went back in for the last part. So the Gemara says, no, maybe when he said kamasrik is kosher, it means it was fully in the tabas gedolah or inside of that. It doesn't mean that it went outside of the bounds when he says kamasrik. So he just went back and forth. So what do you have to tell me? What's the chiddush? As long as it's in the makom shchita, why would it not be good? I might think that in general, you can't do a wavy shchita because then you're likely to go outside to be magram. So Kamash Malon, that's what he was saying, that you could do it with back and forth, but not going out of the bounds. Yasser Rabbi Achuridir of Kahana. Rabbi Abba was sitting in the back of Kahana. Yasser of Kahana Kameder of Yehuda. Kahana was sitting in front of Rabbi Yehuda. Yosef Kamar. Shachat shlish v'higrim shlish v'shachat shlish ma'u. The same question. Amalei shchita shekshera. He said it's kosher. Higrim shlish v'shachat shlish v'higrim shlish ma'u. Amalei shchita psula. This is like what I believe Rabbi Yehuda had said before. Then he asked, Shachat b'makam nekev ma'u. What happens if there was already a nekev, we're on the kana, and he shechted to complete past the halfway point. Where's the Rashi? Shachat b'makam nekev shayichatzi kana pagum b'tzidei hachitzin. The outside, the place that he was coming through from the bottom from the neck of the animal was already menukim. So this is the din that we had said before. Amalei shchitasuk shera said it's kosher, like we had said, like we had quoted on the Amud Aleph. Shachadu paga boy nekev ma'u. What happens if he shechts and there was a nekev on the opposite side of the kana? So Rashi hayachatzi kana pagam b'tzidei hapnimi l'tzad hamafrekes. By the neck, on the neck side, that means he has to cut through half of the kana to get to this pre-existing wound or pagia that was from the other side. Amalai shchitaseb shula. He says it's possible. Azal Reb Abba Amr Kamei Reb Elazar, Azal Reb Elazar Amr Kamei Reb Yechon, Amalei Maishna. What's the difference? Amalei shachat b'makam nekev nas kamisha shachat avid kechavim b'gama Yisrael. If he shechts where there already is a nekev, it's as if Avid kechavim had started doing the shchita, and then the year took over before you got to the halfway point. Shachat upagan nekev nas kamisha shachat Yisrael b'gama avid kechavim. If it comes to a nekev, it's as if the avid kechavim finished the shchita. He said, your Ovid Kechavim, Ovid Kechavim. Rashi is quick to clarify. Listen, we've heard sharp lashonos, but this is going too far to call him a guy. That's the red line. Ovid Kechavim, Ovid Kechavim. Claim b'shchitas Ovid Kechavim ata toilet tamech. B'chal yom ata yachol loimer Ovid Kechavim, Ovid Kechavim. Min time daimim. So you could say as much as you want. It's not going to turn it into the case. It's not going to provide clarity for this question. Just lost my place. Amarava Shaper Karil. He's correct to criticize his svara. Bishlam Hasam in the Havalel Yisrael Mishchat Ruba. When the Yid does the first part, and then the Ovid Kechavim does the halfway point. So the Avid Kecham was the one who killed the animal. Elohacha michti mishchat shachat mali makam mekam mali pagaboy nekav. By the case of the Avid Kechavim, we say if the Avid Kechavim did the halfway point. Over here, we're talking about it was halfway the kana, but there was a pgia that was halfway, but it wasn't more than halfway. You need to have more than halfway to kill the animal. So in either case, whether it was at the beginning that there was the wound, or if it was the end, the Yisrael in either case is taking it over the halfway point, and that should be a kosher shechita. Okay, we'll stop over here. Yeshakayach.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Good day. I almost canceled today.
Nice.